are going to be learning about all kinds of wildlife. This is Mel Grosvenor. I'm one of the naturalists with Greene County Parks and Trails, and I'm here at our nature center. Now, currently is closed to the public, but I can sneak in here, and I know you may be missing some of these critters. Some of you have probably seen them before, and I just want to let you know that everybody's doing just fine, and I want to give you an opportunity to see them. This is a gray tree frog, and it's actually not making me look like I don't know my colors. They can change color. Right now he is being gray, so he makes sense, but there might be times I would get him out, say he's a gray tree frog, and he might actually be the color of my shirt. Or he could be brown, or yellowish, or kind of a combination of them. Now, he's puffed his body up too. One of the things that frogs can sometimes do is puff their body full of air, so it makes them look like a balloon, and it makes them look bigger. It also makes them hard to swallow. But there are predators out there that can get past that. A good example is the hognose snake. Toads will puff up too, and hognose snakes primarily eat toads, and they can pop them before they swallow them. I know that's gross, but I like gross stuff. So gray tree frogs are our largest tree frog in the area, and they are just now starting to breed. I've been hearing on occasion their call. It's a shorter trill than the toads do, kind of a brrr, brrr type of a thing. Now, these guys are going to come to the water to breed, and typically when they're doing that, they are brown. Other times, they kind of choose whatever color. The young, when they first emerge after being a tadpole, are usually bright green. And I would guess that's because they're not up in the trees yet. They're down in the grass, and the green color helps them hide. And, you know, other than that, they can choose whatever, but they match very well in the trees. They look a lot like lichens, and they kind of match that with their camouflage. Now, some interesting things about these guys. They have sticky toe pads, which help them to grip. They can go right up the glass, and they're like, you know, like Spider-Man. They can just go right up walls. So they're in the trees, and if they are spotted, say a bird sees them, even though they have excellent camouflage, they have a trick up their sleeve. No matter what color they are in the back, underneath on their hind legs, they have a bright yellowish orange color. And that is a warning. So when they jump, they're going to flash that color, and that's a way of them telling a predator, hey, you don't want to eat me. And they do have a good reason. And the bird may look at that color and think, oh, last time I ate something that color, I got stung or I got sick. They aren't poisonous, but they do have a very irritating skin secretion. Now, I learned this the hard way. I found one of these once when I was canoeing. It was in my boat, and I, being a naturalist, got it out and was handling it, telling people all about how they change color and can climb trees, all these neat things. And I did not know this at the time, but that skin secretion was on my fingers, and as I'm paddling my boat, I let the frog go, paddling, and I rubbed my eyes. And oh my gosh, that was the most painful thing. And my eyes were red and watering. First I thought I had sunscreen in my eyes, but it just really, really hurt. And later on, I went home and I was like, boy, I wonder what made my eyes hurt. The frog! I knew what it was. It had to be the frog. So I looked it up and found out, sure enough, their skin secretion is very highly irritable, especially if you get it in your eyes. So if you see one of these, do be careful and make sure you wash your hands. We all should be washing our hands right now quite a bit anyway. So before you rub your eyes, I also had this guy for a program once, and I had a small cut on my thumb, and a little bit of that skin slime got in that cut. It felt like there was fire inside my thumb. It's really something else. So if you're a predator trying to eat this, you're gonna regret it. It's probably like the hottest hot pepper you've ever had. So they do have a reason to show that bright color, that warning coloration. So this little guy's name is Booger, and they are very sticky, and in just a moment we'll show you how he can stick around. This is a spotted salamander, and we've named this one Spot for obvious reasons. Spotted salamanders are not something that you see on a regular basis. They come out at night on wet, rainy nights, typically in February or March, to lay their eggs. And so most people don't go out in the woods on wet and rainy nights in the winter, but I'm kind of weird, so I do. And that's how I found this guy. I actually have some vernal pools, which is the area that they lay their eggs. And if you've seen my video on frogs, you will have seen a large mass of eggs in that video. Those were spotted salamander eggs. So this is what they will turn into. And the spotted salamanders are nocturnal, so I've kind of woke this thing up, and normally it would be sleeping right now. They do like to go under logs and in old burrows and tunnels, so they belong to a group of salamanders called mole salamanders for that reason. And they are quite a bit chunkier. Now when I did my things under the logs video, life under logs, we were finding a small type of salamander called the red-backed salamander, and I mentioned that it did not have lungs. It breathed through its skin. These are salamanders that do in fact have lungs, but I still want to keep my hands moist anytime I'm holding an amphibian like this. Their skin still needs to stay relatively wet in order to, keep them healthy. So spotted salamanders, like I said, they're coming out in the wintertime to lay their eggs. Beyond that, you rarely see them outside of the breeding season. They are going to be rather secretive, and they hunt at night. They're going to be looking for things like worms and slugs and insects, things like that to eat. And their young are actually very, very good at eating mosquito larvae. So if you have a breeding pool that spotted salamanders use, a vernal pool, please leave that alone. Don't drain it. A lot of people think, oh, these places that are just out in the woods, that's mosquito breeding pond. Well, if it happens to have salamanders, that's like the worst place in the world for that mosquito to lay her eggs, because these little guys will snap those larvae up like popcorn. So spotted salamanders, they are one of our neat, relatively unknown and hardly ever seen creatures in the woods. These are some spotted salamanders that I found at Caesar Creek Lake earlier this year. And it's neat to see that the spots are a little bit different on individuals. Some have thicker, round spots, and some are a little bit smaller, and they're all unique. Each one has a completely different spot pattern. So this is a painted turtle, and they get the name because it kind of looks like someone took paint and did a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red in the coloration, but that's just the way they come. Painted turtles are very common around anywhere there's water, so rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, and you'll see them often basking in the sun. They're actually absorbing vitamin D, which is good for keeping their shells hard. Now he's actually shedding just a little bit. This is part of one of his scales, and those are scales that cover the shell. They are reptiles, and like any reptile, they do have scales. So this is a turtle that is going to be always near water. And if danger comes, they will slide into the water and swim away. And they are very good at holding their breath for quite a long time, so they can avoid being caught by predators. Now this is a small one. They actually get quite a bit larger. They can be, about the size of a football. And one of the things that's neat about them is they have double coloration. They're camouflaged. They are dark on top and they are light on the bottom, and that helps them to be camouflaged from above and below. If this were a smaller turtle, it would be likely to be gobbled up by something like a great blue heron, and when it's this color, it's kind of murky. It blends in with the muddy water or possibly the vegetation, and it makes it hard to see from above. And if it were swimming, a fish swimming below might look up toward the sun where it's bright, and because it's light on the bottom, that helps it to hide from predators that might get it from below. Now, these guys cannot go all the way inside their shell and close it up like a box, so they're going to need to be able to swim away. So they're always going to be near water. Another interesting thing, this is a male, and the reason I know is he has very long front claws. Now with painted turtles, the males have the long claws, and it's not for defense. They aren't even sharp. They use them because when they see a female turtle that they take a fancy to, they'll go up to her and tickle her with their front claws. So that's how I know this one is a male. Another interesting thing, maybe gross, but I love gross facts. They stick in your mind and they're fun to learn. These turtles in the wintertime hibernate, and they might be in a pond that could freeze solid. And they can't come up for air in that case. So you gotta wonder, these guys have lungs. How in the world do they breathe in the winter? But what they can do is they can actually use their butt. They actually breathe through their butt. They kind of use their area back there, they call that cloaca, and they can use it sort of like a gill. They don't need as much oxygen when they are hibernating, so they can get the dissolved oxygen that they need in the wintertime through that interesting, if not gross, adaptation. And we have decided to name this turtle Bob because there's a famous painter, Bob Ross, and this is a painted turtle, a happy little painted turtle. Actually, sometimes he's kind of a grumpy little painted turtle, but that's okay. And he also bobs in the water sometimes. So here we have Bob. These are eastern box turtles, and box turtles get their name because they can actually close their shell up like a box. They can get their arms and legs and their tail and everything inside there, and there's a hinge right here so they can close it. Now, neither one of these are going to do that right now because they're used to me. They don't see me as a threat. But if I encountered them out in the woods, that's probably the first thing that they would do. Now, we've got two of them here, obviously. One's a little older than the other. We've got Clementine, which is the younger one, and Tangerine is the older one. Now, Tangerine is actually a male, and the reason I can tell is he has reddish eyes, and the bottom of his shell is somewhat curved in right in here. Now, if it were a female, like this one, the eyes are brown or they might be a little more yellowish, and the bottom of the shell is a little bit flatter. So these two are not related to each other. They're not family. We got them on separate occasions, but they do live together in the same cage. And box turtles are kind of interesting. They live on land. They will go to water to get a drink. Sometimes they'll soak, but they're not really built for swimming. So they're going to rely on that adaptation of being able to hide inside their shell like a box until danger goes away. Now, these are turtles that you'll find in your backyard, in forests, in meadows. They're fond of a wide variety of foods. They like berries. So strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. They eat mushrooms, they eat slugs and snails and worms, all sorts of different things. So box turtles are, again, very, very cool, but you may see them out and about and think that you should take them home as a pet, but there are actually laws and restrictions protecting our Ohio reptiles and amphibians, so it is best to leave them alone. But oftentimes you will see them in the road. And if you see one in the road, it is important to take it to the side that it's facing, because it's going there for a reason. Maybe that's where it wants to lay its eggs or something like that. And if it was going in this direction and you stopped your car and picked it up and faced it this way on the other side of the road, it's going to turn right back around and go into traffic again. So I always save turtles anytime I see them, even snapping turtles. It's just a kind thing to do. I hate to see them get hit by a car. So box turtles, really cool. One of my favorite critters. So this is one of the most common snakes around. This is the eastern garter snake. They are easily identified by the yellow stripes that go down the sides and one going straight down the back. And they have a plain belly, and the tongue, as you can see sticking out there, is black on the tips and red. Now these snakes are harmless, but they are commonly found in your backyard, and I wouldn't worry about it if you see them. They are not going to bother you. They like to eat worms. That's kind of their main dietary food source. And they're what I call grab it and eat it while it's kicking snakes. They don't constrict or use venom or anything like that. They just grab the food that they want to eat and swallow it as it's still alive. Now, you notice that the snake is sticking its tongue out. That is how snakes smell. Their tongue is shaped like a letter Y because as they stick the tongue out, they are collecting scent particles in the air. and they process them in the roof of their mouth. There's an organ called the Jacobson's organ, and they can process smells. And so as they're sticking their tongue out, the reason it's shaped like a letter Y, if there's a little more scent on one side, they know the food is in that direction. A little more scent on the other side, they know it's in the opposite direction. And if it's about the same, they know it's right in front of them. Now, this little guy actually came to me through a time that I was kayaking, and I did not know he was in the boat with me the whole time. At that point, he was really tiny. He was only about the size of a pencil, and he had ridden around, and I didn't know till I was finishing my kayak trip and emptied the water out of my boat, and there was this little snake. So we've had him here at the Nature Center ever since, and he's kind of got a personality. I mean, this little snake, if he sees you coming, he's going to stick his head up, kind of like the Loch Ness Monster, and be like, "You got food for me?" You know, he almost begs. He definitely has endearing qualities. He is very quick, so we call him Zippy, because of the fact that if you're not expecting it, sometimes he'll zip right out of that cage, and sometimes I have to chase him down to get him back in there. But garter snakes are a welcome sight in your backyard. Don't be afraid if you have them. Just enjoy them. So this is an eastern milk snake. And the milk snake is one of those snakes that you kind of wonder, how did it get that name? And there's kind of a funny story. Milk snakes are constrictors and they eat mice. So more than likely the snake was in a barn, and there may have been cattle in that same area. And if you're a snake, you basically have just a few things you can do to defend yourselves. You can rely on your excellent camouflage and stay put. And that's what most snakes do when they see something coming. They hope that you don't see them, and they stay right where they are. The other thing they can do is crawl away really quickly, and that's the second most common thing that a snake will do. And the third thing, the last resort, is that they may strike and bite as a defense. Now, imagine this. This is my idea for how this could have come about. Imagine if there was a cow walking around in the field, and there's a milk snake out there, and the milk snake sees this large thing coming. So its first thing is stay put. Don't move. Hope that this big thing doesn't see me. Well, of course, the cow is getting closer and closer, and at this point, this little snake doesn't have the option to leave because now it could get crushed by this big cow. So the only other course of action that it has left is to bite. And the cow, the closest thing that this snake can bite, happened to be its udders, where the milk comes out. And imagine this snake striking the udders of the cow, and that's way more than it can bite and swallow, so it's just stuck there. And it goes into the barnyard still stuck to the udders of the cow. And the farmer probably saw this and thought that the snake was possibly after milk. He'd see it and go, "Well, that there snake's trying to get him a drink of milk, must be a milk snake." And that myth has carried over. Now, I don't know if that's exactly how the name came about, but it is a myth that farmers believed these were in their barns because they wanted the milk from their cows. Absolutely not true. Now, they were doing the farmers a favor. They were killing, pests, mice, and things like that. Now, a neat thing about milk snakes is they have a checker pattern on the bottom. And the name of this snake is Checkers because of that. Very striking, very beautiful coloration. Now, this is an older milk snake, so it's kind of gone brown in color, but when they're young, they actually are a bright red, kind of a red and gray, and as they age, they go more into this brown, but they always will have this delightful checkerboard pattern. This is a northern water snake, and this is one of the snakes that you'll find along any body of water. So rivers, streams, ponds, lakes, they eat fish. So that is why they are found in these places. They are what I call a grab it and eat it. Well, it's kicking kind of snake. They don't constrict, they don't use venom, they simply swallow the fish while it's still alive. And they're not dangerous snakes, but they do kind of have a reputation of being a little more aggressive. Kind of like how a snapping turtle is more likely to bite you than other species of turtles. This snake is a little grumpier and more aggressive, only if you mess with it though. The first thing it's going to do is hope that you don't see it, use its camouflage, and stay put. And if that doesn't work, it'll get away from you. They're very fast swimmers, but if you mess with them, they are going to bite. They will definitely be a little more likely to do that. Now, this snake, because of that, has been mistaken by a lot of folks as being a venomous species, particularly the cottonmouth or water moccasin, which we do not have in Ohio. Those are found, the closest they get to us is far western Kentucky, but because they can flatten their body out and make it look a little bit more thick, like a viper would have a thicker body, and because of that aggressive nature, people often mistake it for something dangerous, which it is absolutely not. So the northern water snake, it is one of our more common snakes, particularly if you are around any water. This is a black rat snake, and it is the largest type of snake that lives in Ohio in the wild. And I'm unraveling it here. This is actually a young one. They will get quite a bit bigger than this when they're towards adulthood, and they could easily be 9 feet or more in length. This one is actually quite young, so it's not attained that length yet. They are going to be climbing trees a lot more than some of the other snakes, because they will sometimes, in addition to rats and mice, they will sometimes go up in the trees and they can eat birds and things like that. They sometimes raid nests. So this snake, as you can see, it's got these coils here. It is a constrictor. So when it finds food, it will squeeze it and then swallow it down. And snakes have an interesting adaptation to be able to swallow. Their jaw can actually kind of open up quite a bit and unhinge to a point where they can swallow things much larger than their head. And so the human equivalent would be if you had a small watermelon and you could open your mouth wide enough to swallow that with no hands. That'd be kind of like your version of being like a snake. So the name for this snake, we originally named it Vader, and then later a herpetologist friend of mine let us know that this one actually is a female, and so we've named her Lady Vader. Oh hi, you caught me playing with some of the toys in the Nature Center. I miss this place. So I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the critters that we have here. They're all native, all things you would find in the woods in your backyard. And I hope you get a chance to go out and see some of these things on your hikes with your family in some of our parks. This is the northern water snake, and I have already handled it once, but we wanted to do some other footage. So he's probably going to be grumpy, and he's probably going to be showing me his true nature. So here we are. I feel like the crocodile hunter is the most dangerous snake. Woo, woo, see what I mean? So I'm gonna get this guy, but I hope he doesn't get me first. Ooh, it's all right, buddy. I'm not gonna hurt you. I just need you for something. Woo, got me. Woo. Ah. You're fine. It's okay. Just gotta sweet talk him. All right. Now, I was messing with him. I deserved that. And that is another thing. When you're out in the wild, if you see a snake, you want to give it space. And, you know, it got me. Okay, it's all right. I deserved it. So one thing I wanted to talk about was they do have another defense. One of the things that they can do is they will musk. And musk is kind of like they go to the bathroom on you and it stinks. It really, really does. And you can wash your hands repeatedly and it's very hard to get that off of your skin. So we were filming earlier, you'll see it in the bloopers. You'll actually get to see this snake musk on my cameraman. So they don't constrict or use venom. And I think he just did one of his defenses. He musked and it got right on my cameraman's shoe. start over. So, northern water snakes, the best thing to do, enjoy them, watch them, and don't mess with them. They don't like it. They're grumpy little snakes. Okay, this is the northern water snake living up to its aggressive, start that over, are good to see around here. They are, never mind, that one sounded dumb too.
Oh, I forgot. I thought you were gonna end.
That's
Alright.
okay. You can just take a picture of it, but try not to mess with it. That's how you're gonna end up getting bit. Let's start over. I think I'm going on a tangent there.
Yeah.
What?
Bob.
Oh, yeah. Main dietary, let's start that over. So this is one of the most common snakes around here. This is an eastern garter snake. And the garter snake is easily identifiable. They have a white or yellowish start over. This is a much younger one. And this one is Tangerine. And the other one is... That is why you're going to find them along the waterways. And I forget what his name is. Dang it.
We'll put it in post.
No, I have it. It's in my phone.